What's up, everybody? We have some pretty wild text messages that we're going to go through today between Karen Reed and Brian Higgins. I was not expecting this. Okay. So I haven't been following the case before it started from all the outside noise. So I'm learning everything brand new and fresh as the jury is. And these texts were pretty shocking to me. Now, what do they prove? How are they going to be used by the state? How are they going to be used by the defense? We'll discuss all of that and more on today's video. And if you guys have questions, put them in the chat because we're going to be answering a bunch as the video goes on. So today was a day for me that I would say changed the way I look at this case a bit. I think the case will have to be proven beyond a reasonable doubt. It's shown me, I guess it's continued to show me that the order and way the Commonwealth is calling witnesses makes absolutely no sense to me. And I think it was an absolute swing and a miss the way they set up this case. We go through our order of proof and how we're going to, talk about it in opening statement, how we're going to go through our witnesses. And some of these witnesses may be getting crushed on cross. Higgins may continue to get crushed on cross, Tuesday when we come back to court. Jen McCabe, I thought, got, pretty crushed on cross. But Jen McCabe's direct, I thought, went well. Kerry Roberts' direct, I think, went well. There was no cross there. And Brian Higgins' direct, I think, went pretty well. I would have started with these three witnesses. Now, there's more shade coming toward Brian Higgins, but that's nothing new. There's been shade with tons of witnesses. But tons of the witnesses didn't really have much that helped the Commonwealth. And I know there's going to be people that say Brian Higgins and Jen McCabe helped the defense a ton, and I get it. I totally get it. And I think that there are parts of it, there are parts of every witness in this case that seem to be helpful for the defense. And I get that. And they're very skilled at cross-examination. I think it's really important what they're doing. And I think they're doing a great job. And I think that it's still going to be about proving this case beyond a reasonable doubt. But if they would have started with these witnesses, I think a lot of people may have seen this case a little bit differently. Because to this point, 17 days in, I'm thinking Karen Reed and John O'Keefe had a pretty great relationship all the way up until the day this happened. I didn't think it was perfect, obviously. But the only negative thing anybody ever said about her is she spoiled the kids too much. And that's the only thing that John ever really complained about with her. But that's changed a little bit after Aruba, which a lot of people said wasn't relevant. Even myself, I was like, I don't really know. But after these texts, it becomes more relevant. Now I understand why the judge let it in. Because there was more context put to that. So we're going to listen to this. We're going to look at it and see their relationship wasn't perfect. Now, that opens the door to all sorts of things. It opens the door to Karen Reed potentially being mad at John O'Keefe. I still think that's a stretch. Even after this, let's remember that they're trying to prove she hit him on purpose with her car and left him. Or in the alternative manslaughter, which I think is really their only chance. There's no way I think they prove second-degree murder. But did she, get mad and want to leave him there? We'll talk about what the texts don't show and don't say. Okay. But it also gives Brian Higgins a motive. And it gives the Alberts and McCabe's a motive to help their buddy and close friend and federal agent potentially cover it up. So I do think there are things that come out with this that create motives for all sides. But I will say it was a little shocking to the system to see this. Because I did not expect this. I did not know. There was reports that like Higgins was going to flip and be a defense witness and turn this whole case on its head and point the finger at the Alberts and the McCabe's. But it didn't. He didn't, at least not yet. So we're going to listen to basically all the text messages. I think that is the most important part of his testimony. I do want to play a little bit about when he left the house and the fact that he went to the station. We'll listen to a little bit of that, but I think most of what we're going to play for direct is going to be the text messages. It's a full hour, so I may read some and summarize some to get through it. And then I want to hear some clips from Cross and talk about them with you. I watched all the way so we can talk about what happened with his attorney and what happened with all that. I'm going to get through as much as I can. I have over an hour, but I don't have 2 hours. So maybe an hour and a half, we can hang out together, answer questions and watch as much as we can. But we know that his cross is going to be continued on Tuesday. So we're going to dive even more into that. So first I want to, so he's an ATF agent. We know that. Friends with Brian Albert, good friends. He and Karen Reed were friends. Confirmed she had the glass. Confirmed he sent a flirty text. Okay, or something like that was the flirty text. And we're going to hear it more on cross. But it was really interesting just the fact that he admitted that was flirty, because if you really wanted to like lie or cover something up, you could say things like, I don't know what that text was about, or I was just saying if she was coming. But he admitted it was flirty, and Jackson used that against him later, which I thought was skillful. He got to Fairview same time as Nicole and Brian Albert. McCabe's came after, and he left almost immediately between 1:30, no, 12:30 and 1 o'clock, which was like exactly the time that the death was supposed to occur. And we're going to hear him discuss when he left.
Do you know approximately what time you left the house on Fairview that evening?
I'd guesstimate it was anywhere between 12:30 and 1 o'clock, but I'm not 100% positive.
Which is interesting. I mean, we know he got to the station at 1:27 because we have his swipe card. So, that's besides the point. We know that's coming later. So he has to say he left sometime between 1 to get to the station by then. But between 12:30 and 1 is a crazy time because a lot's going on between 12:30 and 1, according to all the other witnesses, right? We have the Nagel truck there and that interaction going on. We have Karen Reed's car there, depending on when it is between 12:30 and 1. And we have, I believe, I'm still not 100% clear on the Commonwealth's timeline, but I believe they said that John O'Keefe was killed around 12:45 in the morning, which is, last I checked, right in between 12:30 and 1 o'clock, which is when he left. And he confirmed, of course, he didn't see a body. He didn't see any issues. He didn't see Karen Reed's car. It just doesn't make a lot of sense. Just like he says, it wasn't adding up. I don't know what the heck was going on. It didn't make a lot of sense.
So relatively short period of time, is that correct?
It was a short period of time. I knew kind of from the onset when I got in there, it probably wasn't going to be a long time because I'm not a beer drinker and that's what they had. So I was probably one of the first people to leave.
Now, for that entirety of the time that you were there, did you go anywhere else within the home beyond what you described as far as the kitchen and the living room?
No.
Did you go upstairs at any time?
No.
Did you go downstairs in any sort of basement area at any time?
No.
And when you exited the home, do you recall which of the two doors that you described that you would have exited from?
The same door I came in, the breezeway.
Now, during the time that you were there, similar to what I asked about the waterfall, how would you describe sort of the mood or demeanor within the home?
It was fine. I mean, everybody was happy.
And at any point in time while you were at 34 Fairview, do you, any of the people that were in the house, do you recall seeing them go outside of the house and come back or anything like that?
I can't say definitively I saw anybody come in or out of the house, but I think somebody might have been in the process of maybe being picked up.
And not anybody that you were super familiar with, is that fair to say?
I think it was one of the females.
Now, with respect to the front of the house, at any point in time that you were inside of the house, was your attention drawn or did you look out the windows or the door or anything like that?
No.
And when you were in the kitchen area, do you recall sort of how you were positioned in relation to the windows facing the front of the house?
So I would have had my back to that area, my back to the door that I came in.
And specifically with reference to Mr. O'Keefe and Ms. Reed, at any point in time, did you see either of them inside the house or outside of the house or around the house or anywhere around 34 Fairview Road?
Absolutely not, no.
And at any point in time over the course of the evening, what, if any, communication or text or anything did you send to either of those two people while you were at the house on Fairview?
While I was at the house, I think I shot a text just to John. Where are you? I think that's what it was.
And if you recall, did you ever get a response to that text?
No, there was no response.
So we get that, even according to him, John O'Keefe never came in the house. Ashley said, is it legal for the judge to cut off cross? And if Higgins can't come back to finish? No, especially because a lot of the delays were not the defense's fault today. It seemed like there were juror issues. Higgins' lawyer had to come for a portion of it. That caused a delay. There's no way. If anything, they'll be able to call him in their case in chief. They've got to find a way to get him back if there's more cross that they need to have done to make sure the defendant's right of confrontation, right? She has a right to confront these witnesses and cross-examine them. So I don't think that that's going to happen. Gabby said, Peter, say the judge decided not guilty. The jury decided not guilty on murder. What are the other charges she faces? Well, the lesser included of that second degree is manslaughter, which is a negligent killing. Stars away or always. Isn't it majorly sus he was never investigated? Well, it's not majorly sus when you think he's a federal agent who works at the local police department and is buddies with the police chief and all the other officers. And that's the story the defense is telling. So that's where we're at. Okay, he doesn't know who Colin Albert is, wouldn't be able to pick him out, doesn't think he was there that night. He explains how the plow works. explains how the station is set up. We don't need to listen to that, I don't think. He got home between 1:30 and 2, which he logged into the station at 1:27, so I don't really know. Had a few more drinks and went to bed. By the way, another law enforcement officer drinking and driving a ton and wanting to drink more and leaving because he couldn't drink more at the Albert House because he didn't drink beer was just not great to hear. And I don't know what the jury's picking up about that. Seems like everybody kind of was on the same page. He heard about what happened, didn't know how it made sense. He knows the troopers. Seems like he knows Proctor less than some of the other guys. He screenshotted the text on his phone because he wanted to be fully transparent. He didn't edit anything or do anything to that or about them. So that's his story. And we get to determine whether or not we believe him or agree with it. Okay. This lets me put it back to full screen now. So then they start to get into text messages. He went over to John O'Keefe's house for a Patriots game. To me, I thought they were trying to be like, oh, Higgins and O'Keefe, they were friends. He's obviously not going to do anything to John O'Keefe. He spoke good about John O'Keefe, all of that. But then we get to the text messages, and we're going to listen to a lot of them. And if time gets a little short, I'll just read some to start summarizing them. But here's the, hey, Brian, it's Weed Whacker. He explains, her nickname and how they started talking. And we'll listen to him get through these texts. And we're going to pick out. And I'm going to start with this here to give us some context from the Dallas fan. The texts were bad. Not good for Karen. However, nowhere in those texts did she ever express wanting to get rid of John. Still no evidence of any crime. And we're going to talk about some of the stuff the defense points out as we listen to the text in real time. We're going to point out what I think is good and bad about the text for each side and what the jury may be thinking. And if I was the lawyer on this case, how I would try to use these texts in my closing arguments or with other witnesses to explain where I'm going and what my theory of the case is.
Who I was in that vehicle.
And that becomes sort of a
You told the
theme.
story how he drove by, honked the horn when she was whacking weeds, and she flicked him off, said F you. She said, my husband's a Boston cop. He rolled down the window, said who he was. That's just kind of how they met and their interaction right from the beginning.
Oh, my apologies. I have it now.
Your attention to page 7 of those text messages. And Ms. Gilman, if I could have page 7 on the screen. And sir, if you could read from page 7, and if you could just indicate who's speaking and what is being said in this communication.
So again, I'm in the blue bubbles. Did you try those Smirnoff screwdrivers? I stopped at the Hilly for one last night. I said, haha, how did you get my digits? Defendant responded, the Melissa and Lito show. I said, haha, I thought you creeped John's phone. I said, haha, again. Defendant responded, no way. I was the last person in Greater Canton who didn't have your number. I think even Kerry has it. I responded, what, with a bunch of question marks? I said, I just don't give my personal number out to anyone. How would Kerry have my number with a bunch of question mark? And the defendant responded, Melissa had it.
As far as in those communications, the reference the defendant makes to the Melissa and Lito show, do you know what that means?
The two individuals that I also know from the hillside.
And the Kerry person that she refers to, do you know who that is?
I believe that's Kerry Curran, Chris Curran's wife.
Now, if I could direct your attention to page 9. And Ms. Gilman, if I could have page 9.
So Yobi Trice said, I feel like when the prosecution manufactured those text messages, Brian made Lally have Karen tell him he is hot multiple times. And then Yobi Trice says, I'm sorry, I keep super chatting. I don't know what to do with all the money I have in my bank account. By the way, Higgins has no game. I did see that as a common theme as well on Twitter about it being a little cringy, Higgins trying to flirt with Karen, but we'll get into all that. But as far as the first super chat that you made, I saw a lot of people saying, oh, these are doctored. He screenshotted them instead of turning over his phone. So that means these are all fake. Well, the defense probably had Karen Reed's phone and did the Cellbrite download on her phone. So if there were texts missing or deleted or the timestamps proved something different than what the prosecution is saying, my guess is we would know about that, right? Because she has the other side. And we've already seen them do that to multiple witnesses. So I wouldn't go so far as to say these texts were edited. We're going to get into Brian Higgins destroying his phone. And I think that is a major, major part of this case. And it happens to be at the very end of cross today. So hopefully we get there eventually. But if I was going to say why he deleted his or destroyed his phone, I don't think it had anything to do with his text to Karen Reed, or John O'Keefe. I think it had to do with texts and calls to the McCabe's and the Alberts and Chief Berkowitz, who we're going to hear his name 1,000 times. His buddy Chief Berkowitz, first calls, multiple calls, calling him and then calling the Alberts and calling the McCabe's and all that still to come.
And again, sir, if you could read from page 9 as far as that conversation goes, it just indicates whom is speaking at different points.
Okay, so the defendant said, I prefer weed whacker. I responded, that's the thing about nicknames. Defendant said, we were tossing around the idea of a short vacay with the current show, wanted to see if you were game. I responded, you don't have a say. I believe I was referring to nicknames. And I said, vacation where? Defendant responded, I know. They need to happen organically. I'm the queen of nicknames.
And once we see them on the screen, I may skip through some of them. People accuse me of like skipping through good evidence for the Commonwealth or good evidence for the defense. It's like there's 7 hours and 52 minutes and I'm trying to boil it down to 1 hour. I'm going to skip a lot. Some of it's going to be good. Some of it's going to be bad. Some of it's going to be a nothing burger. But once we see them on the screen, if it's not something I really want to talk about, I may skip through them.
Names. He responded, you guys.
Further discussion or this is on that same.
But I believe it is.
And again, sir, if you could read from that page of communication as far as who's speaking and what was said.
So there's a photograph of somebody with a weed whacker. The defendant said, no, you're not a creep. I said, nope. She said, you're kind of a loner, which I used to be. I responded, no, not really. I have a ton of buddies, but I only let a handful of friends in that I'm tight with. So you think you got me figured out? And then I typed circle of trust in.
I mean, it starts here that he's firing away multiple texts before she responds once, but she's definitely flirting back with him, right? It's not just like we saw an opening. We're like, did he admit to flirting with her? How do they know it's flirting? Is it obvious? Well, there's a lot more to that story than we heard in opening statements. And again, there is something for like saving the punchline, which the Commonwealth did. I would have let the punchline go. But like those just weren't flirtatious texts. Karen Reed was stepping out on John O'Keefe. She wanted other men. She was mad John O'Keefe was cheating. So she decided to cheat herself and she eventually had enough. Whatever the theory is, I would have referenced that she was, kissing other guys and flirting with other guys. And I would have said that in opening if that's a big part of the case, which it seems like it is. So you got me figured out. It's all these like flirting texts that we're going to see go back and forth.
So the defendant said, yeah, I said loner, not loser. I assume you know a lot of people, PPL, people abbreviated. You never really can figure anyone out completely. Your dad died when you were young. And I responded, he died in March of 2020. I'm still not a loser. You won't figure me out. LOL. Defendant responded, no one is a loser. I just didn't mean loner to imply friendless. I'm sorry that's recent. It wasn't COVID, was it? I responded, cancer. Defendant responded, I know you date girls who don't lock the house behind them and you are private and observant. I'm sorry, what kind? I responded, lung, brain, kidney, and pelvis. How do you know all these things? LOL.
I'd like to turn your attention to the next page, page 18. And again, sir, if you could read from that.
In the blue bubbles is me. I said, you're funny. Defendant responded, yikes. Wow, that's rough. Jesus, I'm sorry. We chat a lot at the hillside. I responded, don't be sorry. Life is hard sometimes. I always figure it out. Then I said, who chats? Question mark. Defendant responded, life is hard, but losing people is the hardest. So I'm sorry. We chat. I responded, that's all you got? We chat? Sure. You're from Brockton. Spit it out. Defendant responded, you and I chatted about the girl who kept forgetting to lock the door. I said, oh, she has been out of play like for 3 months now. And then
this is just kind of background leading up to them flirting and, building rapport and talking about their past. And when it comes down to a lot of it, it seems like Brian Higgins is asking Karen Reed for more explanation, more hangout, more time together. And Karen Reed will dangle the carrot, flirt, tease a little bit, but not actually go that far to say, yes, I'm leaving John O'Keefe. Yes, I hate John, whatever. We are going to get into her complaining about John, which I think is the most important part of these texts, but we're going to skip through some of these kind of background ones where she asked him to hang out pretty clearly. They like hanging out with non-couples. He is inviting them. John said, Brian is being wishy-washy now. Did you tell him you invited me? Brian said. She says, no. Are you cranky now? And she says, no. So again, he definitely is looking for that reassuring connection. And what's interesting is the defense said on cross, you wanted a relationship with her, right? You were pursuing a relationship. And he starts saying no. And it's like, it's very clear you do. It's very clear you do. And that's fine. Like, that's fine. You liked her. You didn't want to. But he argues so much that the defense eventually gets to it. Like, you don't want to make it seem like you have motive here, right? That's what the defense gets to. But I thought it was so weird because when Brian Higgins is reading a lot of these texts, I would have felt like he was going to admit that he wanted a relationship with Karen Reed.
Yes.
And again, if you could read from that.
The defendant said, John said Brian's being wishy-washy now, in quotes. I responded, haha, did you tell him you texted me? Being so anti-couple. And foul ball. Defendant responded, you
All right, here we go. So here's where the flirtation is definitely coming from Karen Reed's side. There's nobody that's going to be able to argue, in my opinion, legitimately, that she was not pushing the envelope here. She was not involved in this flirting. Maybe even the initiator, because she did get his number and text him first.
I said, you suck and you're double trouble. Defendant responded, you're hot. I responded, are you serious or messing with me? Defendant responded, no, I'm serious. I responded,
I honestly couldn't imagine texts like this becoming public for everybody to read. So I'm not going to just ruin this guy by making fun of his game. That's not going to be part of this video. I understand a lot of people doing that, and I get it because it is embarrassing. But the point is, ain't no way he can testify with a straight face that he didn't want a relation with her. He even says at some point, I want the real deal, which Jackson brings up to him. So it definitely seems like during the text when Lally was asking him questions, yeah, okay, I wanted to. I shouldn't have. She was dating my friend. But when the fence was crossing him, he's like, oh, no, I didn't want a relationship.
failing is mutual. Is that bad? How long have you thought that? Defendant responded, are you okay driving? You don't want to stay here. I responded back, I'm fine. I have an office at the PD. You didn't answer the question. And then it starts to say, defendant said, rather you stay here.
And is that, to your memory, when is that text exchange taking place? In reference to the night that you went over to the Oakland site.
I believe it was that night.
Now,
so Michelle said he just wanted to have sex with her. I kind of feel like it seemed like that's what Karen wanted. I felt like he seemed to want more, asking if she's serious, the real deal, but what are you going to do with John? You have a boyfriend. Seemed like more from him from these texts, which is fine if he liked her. I mean, not great. You shouldn't do that. Shouldn't cheat. Shouldn't date your friend's girlfriend, all that, of course. But like if you wanted something more with a female, you don't do anything to her boyfriend, obviously. But he pushed back so hard on it, which I think that the texts tell a different story.
into the house and
The house, it was either through the breezeway or the garage. And as we were walking out, the defendant planted a kiss on me.
now, before you went out that way, where was
When he was leaving their house after, I think, watching the Patriots game, leaving John O'Keefe's house, Karen planted a kiss on him. And it seems like nobody's going to dispute that Karen Reed kissed Brian Higgins. Does that mean she committed a crime? Absolutely not. But does it mean there may have been trouble in paradise? I think the answer is probably yes to that. Regardless of how lovey-dovey they were at the bar, other stuff was going on, at least a week prior. Now we're going to see there's some time between this flirtation and whatever was going on with Higgins and Karen Reed in early January and the night of the 28th. And we'll talk about how important that might be to this case. But it is at least something going towards motive and understanding why this seemingly very happy couple and really good dude who's taking care of his niece and nephew as his own kids and girlfriend who's spoiling them. Like I was like lost as to how we ever got from point A to point Z. But this is at least filling in some of the gaps of the story. It doesn't prove the crime, but it does provide some context.
Mr. O'Keefe? Did you say goodbye to him or anything like that?
I think I said goodbye to him. He might have been in the bathroom. I'm not 100% positive where he was.
And when you went to leave, which exit from the house were you headed to initially?
Well, as I said, I don't remember exactly if it was the breezeway or the garage I was starting to walk through. But whichever way I started to exit, the defendant told me to go a different way.
And which way did the defendant tell you to go?
Well, her way. I honestly can't tell you which door that was. If it was either the breezeway or the garage.
And as you were going out, again, I'm sorry, what happened?
The defendant kissed me.
And how did she kiss you?
Not like a friend.
Lip to lip, is that fair to say?
Not like a friend. She was flirting because of the incident at the New Year's. Right. And that was some context that's added to it. Is that's why the New Year's stuff becomes relevant. Again, if the Commonwealth's point and motive is, jealousy or getting back at him or hating him because of that, that's what makes that relevant. And this added context to that as well.
Yes.
Like a romantic kiss.
That's the way I interpreted it.
And were you still inside the house at the time that this occurred, or were you outside the house if you know?
Not sure if we had just got to the outside or not. It might have, I'm not sure if it was close proximity to leaving.
And what was your reaction to that?
I was taken back.
Was that something that you were expecting?
No.
And about how long was it between when the defendant kissed you and when you left?
Oh, almost immediately.
Now, sir, if I could turn your attention back to the exhibit before you on page number 27. Please.
Yes.
Again, sir, if you could read from that page and who's speaking.
So I'm in the blue bubbles, and I said, I think you're messing with me. The defendant said, why do you think that? I responded, because this is so out of left field. Where did these feelings come from? Defendant responded, I just think you're like me. I said, meaning, question mark. Defendant said, do you have your own kids? I said, I have no kids. How am I like you? Question mark. Hello. And defendant responded, aren't we alike? I responded, I think so. So why did you get my number and reach out to me? And I think the defendant put a question mark on that bubble, I believe. Or I might have, I don't know.
Now, that conversation, as far as you asking her about why she reached out to you, how often was that question asked by you through the course of these text communications?
Well, the extent of the actual communication via text between the defendant and I was between January 12th and January 29th when John passed. On the 28th and 29th, the 28th, I sent a text, as we spoke about before when we were at the waterfall. That text didn't respond. There was a text sent by the defendant to me the next day. So in that time period between the 12th and the 29th, there was 9 days that the defendant and I exchanged text messages. With that being said, those text messages, I don't believe were every day, consecutive days. There was 9 days.
So when he was saying this, again, hindsight's always 2020. When he was saying this, I was like, what is he talking about? Like, they talked from the 12th to the 29th, okay, but it wasn't every consecutive day. Oh, no, it wasn't at all. They texted a lot from like the 12th to the 22nd or 23rd, then nothing until he texts her on the 28th. And the defense digs into that more, and I think that that's important to their theory and what they think happens and what they think the motive was for this killing.
Days in between the 12th and the 29th.
And so as far as that questioning, as far as posing to her, why did she reach out to you? Was that something that you asked once or more than once?
Yeah, I asked it more than once. And during the pendency of this communication, I was basically trying to suss out what the intentions were of the defendant. Was the defendant interested in me? Was she at the end of her relationship with John? Was she trying to weaponize me against John and put me in the middle? There was numerous things that were going on. And
Did any of the texts sound like that to you? Definitely didn't seem like he was worried about being weaponized and put between her and John to me. That seemed like a bit of a reach to try to fit into the Commonwealth's theory there. And I don't think he needs to do that. Let these texts speak for themselves, to describe how the relationship went. But throwing stuff like that in there to me, and I think if a juror is being, scrutinizing these witnesses, it's a little bit, Mike Bowe, we're going to get to that, but eerily similar to what we heard with Brian Albert's testimony.
And that's what I was trying to vet out or suss out or whatever you want to call it. But I was having a hard time accepting what was happening.
Sir, if I could direct you to the next page, page 28.
Look, this is one of my favorite movies. Like the mashed potatoes. Is that what I can't remember what he says, but I mean, it was like how he describes the encounters. Yeah, I hear you. I hear you. Meggie, Peter, does the prosecutor know everything the defense has? If the messages were doctored in any way and hypothetically they let it in to catch him. So yes, you have to provide all the materials you plan to use and enter into evidence. Sometimes impeachment materials can come up after the fact. In Florida, you are supposed to turn over impeachment materials. I'm not sure if they have to do the same here. B&B said can't stand the judge. She cut off Alan at the end. She said she was going to stop it at 4:30. So whoever was going at 4:30 would have been cut off. She's cut off both sides right on time as it's going. Also, those texts don't prove anything. Thank you for all you do, Peter. David, Lally also skipped at least a page or two of the text during direct. Well, the defense has the opportunity to show which ones he skipped and maybe throw some shade at it. So we'll see, because cross is still ongoing. Yeah, Ashley said no spoilers, but wait until Jackson's cross. Yes, we are definitely going to get there. And love, thank you for spreading the love with some memberships.
Defendant responded, I told you, I just think we're alike, right? Couple question marks. I responded, yes, agree. Now what? Defendant responded, I don't know. I said, shouldn't you know? Defendant responded, do you like me? I said, yes, from jump. Defendant said, when was jump? I said, first time I saw you. Defendant responded, when was that? I said, Hillside for your sure.
If I could direct your attention to the next page, 29. If I could ask you to read from that, sir.
So again, I'm in the blue bubbles. Hillside for sure. When were you interested? Defendant responded, I don't know, you're just my type. I responded, you think you can handle me? I thought you were happy, question mark. Defendant responded, how do you know if I'm happy? I said, I just assumed. Defendant responded, are you hard to handle? I may have put a question mark. Then I said, what do you like about me? Defendant responded, I just feel like you're from my neighborhood. I said, yes, yeah, ditto. Defendant responded, and I think you're hot.
And if I could direct your attention to the next page, page 30. If I could ask you to read from that, sir.
I'm in the blue bubbles again. You really think that? I have always thought that about you. Defendant responded, what? I responded that you're hot, smart, witty, but I didn't think you were interested. Defendant.
It's pretty much the worst. I hate reading. I would hate to read people flirting back and forth on texts. At least when my facial reactions are being filmed. I hate it. I just got to keep a straight face. And I agree, Brown-Eyed Girl definitely leans prosecution. I don't think it's the worst judge I've ever seen, though. I mean, I've definitely seen worse, but she definitely has a prosecution lean. Melly, if he was having such a hard time, why continue texting? I think we know, Melly. I think we know. June, how on earth did she get back at John when he didn't know that she was flirting? Jackson was great. Higgins should have said the truth. He went to the Alberts, texted John to see her, in my opinion. I agree. I think if he would have just gone in, been like, yeah, I texted John. I wanted him to come. I wanted to see Karen. I was into her. And the defense is going to run with that as a motive. But if he just acts like it's normal and it was obviously mutual, why does he have to get rid of John? Seems like Karen was going to do this with or without John being there, right? That's what I think happens sometimes when you get a little nervous or scared that the defense is really pushing something and it might be working, is you really twist stuff and try to make it seem like something it's not, when in reality, if you just say what it is and you speak the truth, I think a juror's smart enough to be like, okay, that makes sense that he liked her, and that seems like she liked him by these texts. So why not just keep pursuing that? Why get rid of John? Now, maybe the defense would respond with, she was ghosting him, which is part of cross that we're going to listen to in a little bit. What are they each trying to handle? I'm confused. Trying to handle each other, trying to make sure how they feel about each other.
That responded witty. I responded, yeah, meaning quick with a response. Tell me why you got my number and reached out to me. Defendant responded, just thought we were the same / from the same neighborhood.
Not saying I want to be with you, I want to date you, I want to be your girl, right? So that's what he's looking for. He's definitely looking for the real deal. And she is waffling, and he knows she's waffling. It's very clear from these texts. And again, that wouldn't have been a big deal if he didn't try to act like it wasn't on cross.
I responded, are you afraid to say what's on your mind? What's in your mind? And then I said, on. Defendant responded, no, didn't I? No, didn't I? Question mark.
And sir, if I can turn your attention, to the next.
Yeah, Roos J, that made no sense to me either. It's like, yeah, I had to make sure to go move cars around while I've been drinking all night. It just seems weird. But what do I know? Tom said, Peter, mock trial for me in high school in 1985 was one thing. I can't imagine what it would be today in high school or law school if these are adults. Lordy, this would never be a mock trial problem. It's way too much going on here for mock trial. There's usually like 3 issues in a mock trial packet. There's 3,000 issues in this case.
Page 31. I asked you to read from that.
I should have come earlier. Do you really live in Mansfield? Defendant responded, yeah. I was basically begging you. I responded, you don't have to beg me. I meant to say beg. Defendant responded, huh? I said, I will give you what you want. How are you texting right now? And I said, leaving me hanging. Defendant responded, no.
And again, he starts to get, when she's not responding, he texts a bunch of times. Again, goes to the defense's case. There's plenty here for the defense to work with as well. They can't get over the fact that she kissed him and they were flirting. But there's plenty that they can use here as well.
I typed kids and then kinda. Defendant responded, how am I texting? And I began to say, is everyone asleep?
As far as the communication from the defendant indicating, yeah, I was basically begging you, what did you take that to mean?
That she wanted me to come over?
And if I could turn your attention to the next page, 32. If I could ask you to read from that page as well.
So it starts off with the defendant saying, I just wide awake on my phone. Yes, they are. I said, I should have stayed, LOL. So now what? Question mark. Defendant said, yes, you should have. I responded, that would have been distracting. So now what? So no, what? And then I said, now. Defendant said, now what? Question mark. I responded, balls in your court. Defendant said, what do you want? I responded, loaded question. What do you want? Question mark. Defendant responded, I asked you, exclamation point. I in turn said, nope, you initiated this.
If I could turn your attention to the next page, 33.
So Best Self said, does this help or hurt Karen? And I know what I think, but I want to hear from you guys. John, will you throw up a poll? Do these text messages help or hurt Karen Reed? And then help and hurt are the two options for people to vote on. Because I want to hear from you guys, and then I'll kind of tell you overall what I think of the text messages.
Defendant said, hey, we're single and we don't have kids. We can do whatever we want. I responded, don't you have a boyfriend? Question mark. Defendant responded, where are you? Question mark. I said, Canton. Defendant said, where? Question mark. I responded, my office is at the PD. Why? Why? Are you going to Mansfield? Question mark. Defendant responded, where is that? I said, Canton PD. Defendant said, I have a house there from before I reconnected W. John. I responded, oh, I feel like you're not really saying what's on your mind.
If I could turn your attention to the next page, 34, and ask you to read from that, sir.
Defendant starts off and says, do you like me? Question mark. I responded, yes, clearly. Defendant said, come over my house. I responded, "Why are you messing with me?"
The bottom, starting with, are you glad? Do you see that? And what did she respond?
Defendant said, yeah, Mark. And I said, yes. And then I said, are you going home tonight or tomorrow AM? Defendant, question marks, ability. I responded, you started this, right? Question mark.
And then ask you to read.
Have. I responded, I'm fine with it. Just don't know why you can't answer. Defendant said, you're mad at me?
Again, pushing for clarification and more that she's not really giving him. Let's see what else there is. I assumed, here we go. I assumed you were happy with your situation. I was, but things have deteriorated. So here is some important texts about her relationship with John O'Keefe and where it was going and how it wasn't, paradise and everything was perfect.
Situation. Defendant responded, I was, but things have deteriorated.
And if I could direct your attention to the next page, 38, and ask you to read from that, sir.
I said, why? Question mark. How so? Question mark. What did Melissa say when you asked for my number? Question mark. Defendant responded, it is very, very complicated. He and I dated when we were kids, and then his sister died and everything got fucked up. I responded, he seems very into you. Defendant responded, I just told Melissa that I had your number but lost it. I said, that's cute. She wasn't suspicious? Question mark. Defendant responded, no, she's great. I responded, does she fake?
So again, these are some very negative text messages sent by Karen Reed that I think just about any person would cringe when they read. That because John is taking care of his kids, their situation got effed up and it's not what she wanted. And I think that while that doesn't prove she committed any crime, we do have to realize that the jurors are people. And if you're looking at a defendant for 16 days and maybe you thought she was in a positive light because mostly people were saying positive things about her and John's relationship. There was a couple instances where maybe she got jealous or drunk or whatever it may be, but these are negative. And when we talk about the generally bad guy rule in a lot of these criminal cases, these text messages go towards that. And it's very common for prosecutors to use this to mount up negativity against a defendant.
Defendant said, yeah, but where is that? I have had all my shit here for a couple of years and my house has been vacant, but I'd like to get closer to the water. I responded, are you breaking up or staying together? Defendant responded, I don't know. He hooked up with another girl on vacation. I'm very close to his niece. It is a very fucked up situation. I responded, when was that?
And Tom, I think this is the point, right? It makes a bad impression. Doesn't prove she committed a crime. Doesn't prove she's a criminal. It just makes a bad impression. And we've done a lot of research on juries. And the more a juror hates a party, the more likely they are to go against that party. And so we got to be careful. And we write laws in America to keep from doing character assassination on parties for this exact reason. But if you can bring it in as motive, then sometimes the lines get a little blurred. So this is really interesting. Over 1,000 votes. Do these texts help or hurt Karen Reed? 54% say help, 46% say hurt, almost split 50-50. Wow. I see a bunch of people saying people are coming over from Runkle's stream. Was he streaming the actual trial today? I thought he usually does his at night as well. Feel like we're usually doing ours at the same time, so I don't get to watch his as much. But I see a ton of people coming in from there. That's awesome. Welcome to everybody from Runkle's stream. John said, why did he have to read all these? There are so many, because they do provide some important context to me that nobody else really provided so far.
And how did you find out he hooked up? Question mark.
So,
I don't
and
want to
also
complicate.
hooking up with another girl on vacation, referencing Aruba. That's why Aruba is relevant. That's why we're going to get some stuff from Aruba in already. And obviously that she was upset about that, even though she says, I'm not even that mad about the girl eventually, which again, I think cuts towards the defense. There's a lot in this text message change that cuts towards both sides.
Your situation. Defendant responded, we went away for New Year's, the four of us. I put the kids to bed and found him in the lobby of our hotel all over one of our friends. Whatever, it doesn't matter. I responded, it does matter.
Now, as far as that indication that
So it took place at my house was in relation to, again, sussing out and trying to figure out if this, and again,
So then she comes to his house. Nothing physical happens. And then she leaves, which again shows me maybe she's not that into him. Right. And I think that's going to be part of this equation too. Does she really want to get John out of the way? She, being Karen Reed, really want to get John out of the way to be able to be with Higgins? Like, Higgins doesn't strike me as the type of guy that's going to be like scared of John. Maybe some guys would be scared of, taking a Boston cop's girlfriend. Higgins doesn't strike me as that guy. Maybe he doesn't want to because it's the wrong thing or whatever, but I don't know. Just seems weird for this to be motive for Karen Reed to do this to John O'Keefe. Maybe motive to cheat on him or leave him, but to do this, it's hard for me to connect that.
Conversation that took place at my house was in relation to, again, sussing out and trying to figure out if this was everything that I stated before. Like, was this legitimate? Was she seriously interested in me? Was she at the end of her relationship with John? And during that,
and those questions were never answered. He never says what the answer to those are. If it was like, yes, she's interested. Yes, she wants to be with me. Yes, she wants to leave John. Then we would have had more information.
there was touch on that topic, and I became to realize, it was my understanding at that point that this incident took place in Aruba on New Year's Eve, based off the text messages and the conversation at my residence.
This was something that she brought up, not only in the text communications with you, but in person and communication with you as well.
Yes, I mean, outside of being over there for the game, there was only one time that the defendant and I ever interacted on a one-on-one basis.
If I could direct your attention to the next page, 41, and ask you to read from that.
So I'm in the blue bubbles, and I said, "Did they bang?" Question mark. The defendant responded, "Does that matter?" Question mark. I said, "Sorry, I was just asking. I was just trying to figure shit out." Defendant responded, "It doesn't really
weird question, but whatever. This whole text chain is weird.
matter." I said, "Okay, I won't ask again." Defendant said, "I don't care," with a smiley face. It doesn't matter. I responded back, "Okay, hear you loud and clear, Karen." Defendant responded, "Okay." I responded, "Why are you getting your thing all twisted up over simple questions?" Then I typed on. Defendant responded, "I'm not. I am?" Question mark. I responded, "You're kind of getting defensive." Defendant responded, "Not at all," with an exclamation point.
Chris, this would have been the runaway winner. That's why I didn't.
Ask you to read from that.
"We did kiss earlier, comma, no," with an exclamation point. I responded in blue bubble, "I think you initiated that, no?" Question mark. Defendant said, "Yup. Do I owe you an apology?" Question mark. I said, "OMG, no. Why are you being sensitive?" Defendant responded, "I'm not." I responded, "Kinda." There's a P and a FFT, never, responded by the defendant. "What do you want from me?" Question mark. I responded, "What's on the table?" Question mark. Defendant said, "What do you want ideally?" Question mark. I responded, "The real deal." Defendant responded, "It doesn't exist."
So what do you want ideally? The real deal. If I was going to ask you in the chat to define what the real deal is. Again, welcome to everybody coming over from Runkle. What is the real deal? Right? Because he's asked these questions on Cross. And it's really weird how he answers them after how I thought it was going to go from direct. Yes, make sure you guys hit the like button. I don't know if I said that yet. Make sure you like this stream. All right? And make sure you subscribe to our page. And everybody, I mean, so this was another chat. "My hubby's out cleaning the boat. I can't stop watching. This is better than a movie." Tiffany said, "I love your channel. I'm a neighbor in Palm Harbor. I love Palm Harbor." I mean, just look at John O'Keefe's and everybody in the gallery leaning over to see the screen to look at these texts. Everybody's watching it. Everybody's glued to this. I mean, this is wild stuff.
It starts off in blue. I said, "I can go to any base, but usually Hanscom and Bedford are down to the Cape." Defendant responded, "Which base down the Cape?" I responded, "Yes." He said,
Let's get through some of these.
more than you clearly need. Are you moving to Canton? Question mark. Defendant said, I know, seriously. Some rooms I only go into. I never wanted kids. I responded, I went from being solo to trying to give attention to kids who aren't mine, and I never wanted kids. I responded,
Again, not great. Not a great look. Not going to build any sympathy points or likability points.
I thought you were happy in this. I thought you were in this happy relationship. Defendant responded, everyone is happy at the hillside.
If I could direct your attention to the next page, 61, and ask you to read from that.
So it starts off with the defendant. It said, everyone is happy at the hillside, exclamation point. I responded, oh God, you avoid things. Defendant responded, it's just very, very complicated dynamic with the four of us. He isn't cut out for what he's doing, and the kids present constant issues.
More negatives about the kids and about John. But again, he asks her over and over again, are you going to leave him? What do you want? I want the real deal, he says. And she does not agree. Does not seem like she's stuck in some relationship she can't get out of, that she just wishes she could get out of if she could find a way to get rid of John O'Keefe. Never does that come up in these text messages. And while these text messages are important and what they do say is important, what they don't say is also really important.
Responded, I think he believes he is doing the right thing. Defendant responded, well, of course he is, but his heart isn't in it. It's only because he was very, very close to his sister. I responded back, I know how you feel, kinda. I was married, and when I met her, she had a 2.5-year-old. I went from being single to being a dad. It's hard. Then I said, I'm divorced since 2017 and have no kids.
Like, just in case you're comparing me and John, remember, I have no kids. Okay? Don't forget that. I have no kids when you're making your choice. Like, it's cringy. This is incredibly cringy to his buddy, John O'Keefe, that he really respected and cared about.
The next page, 62, and ask you to read from that, sir.
I said, I'm divorced since 2017 and I have no kids. Defendant responded, I try very hard, but they are very spoiled and they're not my family. My parents keep telling me I'd feel differently if they were mine or my own sisters. Then I told you he got drunk and sloppy on NYE while we were away, and that has really affected me. I responded, what did he exactly do? Question mark. Defendant responded, I never got married, and now somehow I'm arguing someone about raising kids with an emoji. I responded, why don't you tell me? Question mark. Defendant responded, he was a puddle all day and then disappeared. Then I found him all over our friend's sister in the lobby of our hotel, and she's gross, which I think may actually be worse. Not sure. I responded, oh God, did they bang?
Subtle shots at Etta.
Celebrating New Year's, I think it's without him, which shouldn't be my role. No, I doubt it. He was a mess. I said, was it the first time with her, or do you think there were others? Defendant responded, I don't really think there were others. I'm with him all the time. He never seems to want to go anywhere, without me. But honestly, the issues with the kids bother me more than him actually cheating. They are constant, and it feels like a lose-lose. I responded, you clearly have a lot of feelings swirling inside you. Defendant responded, yeah, it's very complicated. Sorry for the rant. I responded, or began to respond, you can vent, babe.
If I turn your attention to the next page, 64, ask you to read from that, sir.
It's almost like, Johnny, they think, well, if it happened to one person, it could happen to anybody, but a lot of coincidences in this case.
Defendant said, basically, I just feel like I spread myself too thin and sometimes it's thankless. I responded, Defendant responded, you probably felt that way too. I responded, I did at times. It was one, not two, thankfully. Defendant responded, want to grab a drink? Question mark. I responded, if you gave me some notice, I could have. Defendant responded, you in capital.
Going over to the direct.
Begging you to come over last Saturday. Question. Said you didn't really beg. Defendant said, I asked at least. He said, do not do it. It's at the hillside. I responded, you know how to ruin something nice. I frequent other places. The defendant responded, John has showed me about 5 times the ring video of me walking you out on Saturday, and my voice and my accent are killing me softly with an emoji of somebody throwing up. I responded, what? Defendant responded, yeah, he has cameras everywhere, you cops, with another emoji. I responded, Jesus. Defendant said, he's like Christ. Are you guys hooking up? Question mark, question mark. And I said, OMG, great.
So if we're going to take this as motive, John was on to them. He was sniffing it out. Did he say something to Karen that night? Well, that's where the relevant testimony that we've already gotten in because of the Commonwealth's witnesses about how they were lovey-dovey all over each other, rubbing each other's backs, hugging, whatever that night. This must have happened in the 7-minute car ride over to the Alberts. Is that plausible? Or the defense's theory, I think, if I'm starting to pick up what they put down, John O'Keefe goes in the house. Maybe something was said. Maybe he asked a question. Maybe somebody says something about Higgins kissing his girl. And then a fight starts. I don't know. Or maybe it was an accident. I don't know. Here's the point. It's up to the Commonwealth to prove what happened and that Karen did this beyond a reasonable doubt. And this creates options of motives, options of what happened that night. It does not prove it to me with these text messages. Which is why at the end of the day, I do think these texts help the Commonwealth, but they don't prove the case.
If I could turn your attention to the next page, 78, sir.
I responded, I don't need drama, dude. Defendant said, no, it's fine. I responded, seriously? Defendant said, I'm serious with an exclamation point. I said, you legit planted one on me. Defendant responded, I know where the cameras are anyway, duh. And move isn't on there with some question marks. Defendant responded, course not. I responded, oh my God. And then I said, I almost, an emoji with somebody throwing up. Defendant responded, it was a peck anyway. I kissed Kerry and gay Jeff too. I responded, yeah, weak. I agree.
So here's another part on cross that he kind of tries to argue with. She says it was a peck. I kissed Kerry and gay Jeff too. And I assume her kissing them was not in a real deal relationship sort of way. And he said, yeah, weak. I agree. Well, he doesn't seem to agree when he says it's not how you kiss your friend and how he argues with Jackson about it. So interesting to read the texts versus what, he says on the stand today.
Now, as far as,
Recall.
if I could turn your attention to the next page, 79. Ask you to read from that, sir.
Defendant said, LOL.
I mean, would you know it was character assassination if, the judge is reading you instructions that this is about motive and the prosecutor is going to say it's about motive. It's not about her being a bad person. They try to couch it in other things when in reality, it feels a lot like a character assassination. So if jurors can differentiate that when they're consumed in this world, right? And they're listening to what the lawyers say, they trust the lawyers, they trust the judge sometimes. And that's what they're told it is. Or would you automatically pick up that this was a character assassination?
Funny. I said, which makes this worse? Question mark. Defendant said, you said.
John likes him a lot, which makes this worse, but it doesn't stop him. Doesn't stop him. And once again, 6 texts in a row from Higgins wanting to know what's happening. What are we doing? What's your end game?
Said or did something at the bar last week, and he goes, I like Brian more and more. I responded, I think he's a good dude too. Defendant responded, yeah, he is. I responded, funny. What's your end game? What do you want from me? You will just confuse the shit out of yourself because I'm a lot of fun.
Now, sir, the he that you're referring to in those text communications, who was that, just for clarity?
John O'Keefe.
Trice, you're killing me. You're killing me. I'm trying not to laugh when I see your comments you're throwing up here that get automatically starred. Brian, I know this is off topic, but when Ryan Nagel mentioned the feds as in federal investigation, why did that not open the door to discuss that? So I dove into this in detail the day that he testified, but generally speaking, just because somebody references something like the feds, even if it comes out in front of the jury and is not fully explained, the judge is not going to let you just go into it and open the door. It's really only as if one side uses something that opens the door. Like if the state was like, yeah, federal investigators believed everything you said and made decisions based off that, and we won that federal investigation, didn't we? Well, then the judge is like, well, no, now the defense gets to go into it and prove what actually happened and get into the details. A one-off reference is not going to allow the judge to get into stuff that's irrelevant and almost have a trial within a trial on something she's already ruled is irrelevant.
I'd like to direct your attention to page 84. And ask you to read from that page, sir.
This is possible.
I said, it was fun. Defendant said, I've complimented you today too.
Look at the O'Keefe family leaning over that bar. It's just interesting. I noticed that watching real time.
With a couple of exclamation points and then some type of emoji. I said, and kicked my nuts in. Defendant said, OMG, how? I responded, if I had more notice, I would have grabbed a drink somewhere. So I'm all set with that's. And then I said, in quotations, that's fine, but I am not asking again. Defendant said, well, it was 7 p.m. and I'm super cool. So right now I'm asking again with some type of I think it's a smiley face.
The Sunday Girl, it's so interesting because so many people can read the same exact text and come up with so many different feelings and ways to view them and things that they believe this creates a narrative of, or even a motive or lack thereof. I don't really see anybody saying, haha, this proves she wanted to end his life. Because I don't think that was this. There was no plan. There was no intent. There's no way. Was there an accident? Maybe. And the Commonwealth still has to prove that. But if it's an accident, you don't need motive. And I'm starting to think, because we've been asking all along, why would they charge second degree? That's wild. Why in the world would you charge second degree? There's no way you prove that. Well, without second degree and some depraved heart or evil intent or intent to end somebody's life, you probably don't get all these motive texts in to make Karen Reed look bad. So did they charge second degree so they could get all these texts in and get motive against Karen Reed and how she didn't like the kids and it's all an effed up situation, but they're still just trying to prove manslaughter at the end of the day? I don't know. I can't wait to hear what these accident reconstructionist experts say.
Responded, coming to your house would have been bad for the both of us. For starters, you wouldn't have wanted me to leave. The defendant responded, now equals not. That sounds good. I responded, that's trouble.
Page 90.
Your chops, it's okay. I responded for an invite. None of it. Am I avoiding Twitch? Ask again. I said, nope, tricks are for kids. Point. I'm not talking to other guys, and I have issues with John, and things are far from perfect. You just happen to know about him, BC, I guess, because we all hang out at the same bar. I'm sure you talk to other girls. That's what single people do. I'm not married. Neither are you. Neither is John. I responded, was that your attempt at a lecture or deductive reasoning, question mark? What do you want from me, question mark? Defendant said, that's just how I think / feel. You don't need to approve. I've already answered that last question a couple of times, I think. I responded, I'm not judging you, never have, never will. Defendant responded, you shouldn't. I don't know what your private life is about, nor is it my business.
Sir, if I can now direct you to page 102 and ask you to read from that.
Defendant said, my only, I'm assuming, point is that there's a difference between being married to someone and dating them, and we have no intention of ever getting married. The point of dating is not to get tied down. If you're not confident, you should be, in my mind anyway. The first two, but I don't care too much about the other girl. I responded, okay, so he is cool with you dating other people, question mark. Defendant responded, and I'm not happy per se, just realistic that there's cracks and it's far from perfect. I doubt it. If he's seeing someone else, I wouldn't want to know either way. He probably feels the same way, and you probably feel that way about whoever you hook up with. I think that's normal. I responded, okay. Defendant said,
so again, and Leah, it's a great point. We all complain about our kids. I'm assuming most people do. We've seen some trials about horrible parenting and horrible parents that don't do what John O'Keefe and Karen Reed seemingly did. Even if they complain about their kids, they still try and they don't neglect them. So again, I do think they're trying to make her look like a bad person. Iceman here said, 100% agree with you in the text. Help the Commonwealth was 1,000,000% behind Karen Reed, now feeling indifferent. Glad I'm not on the jury. Commonwealth still haven't proved guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. But do you see what he said there? He's starting to feel a little more indifferent. So people, and I'm not saying this about Iceman, I appreciate this perspective because it helps me kind of make this point where I do think there are some people that were championing Karen Reed as like this great person or whatever, and she still may be. I'm not saying she's not. But what's the Batman quote? It's like, you either die a hero or you live long enough to become a villain. I'm sure I messed it up. But it's like, as we learn, and if we're really going to dig into people's phones and their past, they're going to find something we don't like about them. That's what's so hard about putting all this stuff on display. And the more you can put on display for the Commonwealth, the less people are going to be really fiery behind somebody. You can look at anybody, they get villainized eventually, right? No matter how good they are, no matter how nice they are, no matter how much public good they do, eventually the public finds a reason to hate everybody. It feels like.
you don't agree with me, question mark, question mark.
If I could direct your attention to page 107.
Have the bubble with a question, pick of you.
Some of the house.
Version of trying to suss out and vet, like, what is this all about? Again, I mean, I'm not proud of these text messages. It is what it is. I take responsibility for them. But, John was a friend at the same time. And I certainly wasn't, if they were at the end of the relationship, they were at the end of the relationship. But I wasn't going to have somebody utilize me and weaponize me against somebody that I liked. And it was just.
What indicated to him that she was weaponizing him? I don't, maybe the text about like, oh my gosh, John is on to us, or asked if we were banging or something. I don't know. I don't get that. That seems like a stretch.
It was just a weird experience. It was, I don't even think either one of us finished a drink. It was, like I said, it was this type of like, what is this all about? And then she left. I think I might have asked her to text me when she got in, so I knew she got home.
Okay.
Now, that evening or at any other points, at any other point in your friendship or your relationship, whatever, however you want to term it, was there any other sort of intimate contact beyond what you described occurring as she walked you out that night you were over at Mr. O'Keefe's house with Higgins?
Are you asking if she ever kissed me again?
I'm asking if there was any kissing, any sexual relationship, anything at all between yourself and the defendant.
Absolutely not. In referring to my residence when she stopped by, it was just, I was very uncomfortable, and it's just an uncomfortable situation. It's just a weird vibe. That's the best I can describe it.
And lastly, sir, lastly, as it applies to this, turning your attention to the last page, number 1A, from the middle to the bottom of the page, is that correct?
There is.
If I could ask you to start reading from, excuse me, where it says Sunday, January 23rd, 9:40 p.m.
So here we go. So all those texts were, I think it was like January 12th, January 23rd, then nothing till January 28th, where he says and well, and then she says John died on January 29th. So this is really interesting to me.
Defendant, so Sunday, January 23rd at 9:40 p.m., defendant texted me, phone works, and then an emoji with arrows going like both ways. And I responded, thought you were all set, question mark. Defendant said, with talking, question mark? No. I said, are you sure? And she didn't respond. And I believe I said, that was it for that, the 23rd. I'm sorry.
So then the next date that any text communication was sent between the two of you would have been Friday, 11:32 p.m. Is that correct?
That's correct. That would have been when we were at the waterfall.
And again, what does the text say there?
Well.
That's from you to her, is that correct?
Yes.
And then the next text communication is the following day, or Saturday, the 29th at 11:54 a.m. Is that correct?
The defendant said, John.
Communication. Ms. Gilman, you can take it. Sir, if I could.
All right. So that's it for direct. And a bunch of people are feeling the same way about this. I put a couple of very similar comments up there. And John said, could drunken unintentionally murder be a charge? Seems like KR made a drunken unintentional life decision to me. I feel like someone lost their life without intentional motive. Yes, John, this does exist. And it's called manslaughter, which is one of the things that they're charging her with as a lesser included. So seems like that's where you're at right now. We'll keep an open mind as the trial continues. And thank you, Love, for spreading even more love. And we're about to get to Cross. And on Cross, it's Alan Jackson. And he starts with, why'd you bring your lawyer here? Where is your lawyer? You got your lawyer here. That's kind of weird. Objection sustained, of course. Met with Lally to prep the testimony. Talked a lot about his relationship with Chief Berkowitz and his buddies with basically everybody. This guy knows everybody. He's friends with everybody. He is a federal agent. In the formal interview, even he said he was a little afraid of Brian Albert. Objection sustained. They talked about Brian Albert getting in fistfights. Objection sustained. This was kind of a funny moment. I thought would be a nice breakup in all of this monotony where everybody laughed again in court.
Well, it would have taken, say that again?
He was nursing one beer while you had 4 Jamesons? What you said?
No, he was probably, maybe he had more beers than I had Jamesons is more what I would say.
Okay, so maybe he had 5 or 6 beers while you had 4 Jamesons.
I'm not going to put a number on it because I don't know.
But it was more.
More than what?
More than you.
Maybe. He wasn't there that long.
Well, it doesn't take that long to drink a beer, does it? If you're sort of thirsty and in a hurry.
Is that a question?
Everything I said.
First off, and I didn't listen to this as closely the first time, but he said Jackson does actually ask a question. There are plenty of statements Jackson makes, but he actually does ask this in question form, and the judge says that wasn't a question. It's all kind of funny, but he actually did. So judge needs to listen.
Drink a beer, does it?
Maybe. He wasn't there that long.
Well, it doesn't take that long to drink a beer, does it? If you're sort of thirsty and in a hurry.
Is that a question?
It doesn't take that long to drink a beer. That's a question.
I say up here is a question, does it? If you're sort of thirsty and in a hurry.
Is that a question?
Everything I say up here is a question.
Okay.
Just presume that.
All right. So.
Well, that wasn't. So, so let's question. Yes.
Yes, it was. It was a question. Doesn't take that long to drink a beer was the question with some ad libs in there. Michelle, not okay. But if there were something major that Lally skipped that was important to add context, if there are pages of screenshots that the defense has, which if they exist, they probably have them, doesn't mean he didn't delete stuff before doing this. Of course, you can do that when you're taking screenshots as opposed to a cell phone download, which obviously this guy knows is the better form of evidence. But the defense would have the opportunity to kind of push back on that. And maybe they will. No other hugs, kisses, sexual, intimacy between them. She avoided clarity. And here we go. This is when we get into the whole, like, you were attracted to her? What did you want? Stuff like that.
Romantic interest in Karen Reed, weren't you?
I was interested to find out, to have that question in my mind when I didn't initiate this, she did. And I think it was a fair question just to try to find out.
You were showing romantic interest in Karen Reed, weren't you?
I was interested, but I don't think I was at the romantic phase.
Okay. When I say romantic, well, what do you mean by romantic? What's the romantic phase?
Sending somebody flowers?
Dating
Well, there's a difference between dating and hanging out. I mean,
Wow.
it's kind of hard to date somebody.
Melistasi, thank you for this correction. She meant everything I say is a question is not a question. That's smart. Judge is listening. I'm not. I lose. She wins. You're right, Melistasi. Thank you for saying that. Right when you said that, I was like, and that actually is funny. When he said everything I say is a question is not a question. Random remixes said the same thing. Thank you. You guys are right. I was wrong. My B.
When you have a boyfriend.
Mr. Higgins, well, not if both people are dating other people, right? Happens all the time.
Well, I think I asked that question too.
Right. That's not my question. My question is, you seem to have a problem admitting that you had a romantic interest in my client. Is there a reason for that?
I was attracted to her.
Right. Physically attracted.
I thought she was an attractive woman.
Romantically attracted.
I'm not going to go there. No, I don't agree with that.
Of course you're not going to go there because that would put you in a very awkward position, wouldn't it, sir?
Objection. Not at all.
So the objection sustained is to the form. You can ask it differently, and that answer will be stricken now.
I'm sorry, Your Honor. May I?
Yes.
You were sexually attracted to her.
I was physically attracted to her, yes.
Sexually attracted to her was my question.
Well, I think in the text I said you're hot.
Okay. So my question again, Mr. Higgins, you seem to have not answered
Yes,
my question.
dude.
My question is, were you or were you not sexually attracted to my client?
Yes.
Okay.
Not a big deal, dude. We already know the question, and we all already know the answer. Just say it. It makes you look worse when you argue when everybody knows your answer and it takes 5 questions to get there. Just say yes. I think Jackson loves it when witnesses do that.
Saying things like, what do you want from me? And I want the real deal. Those are your words, correct?
Yes.
And the real deal with you would be to date her, to get involved with her, romantically, correct?
No.
The real deal was what? What did you mean by I want the real deal?
Like a relationship.
What kind of relationship? A buddy-buddy relationship? You just want to go like
This is the same thing everybody wants, a real relationship.
a romantic relationship, Mr. Higgins?
It's possible.
Right. And she was answering with things like, when you said, now what? She answered, I don't know, correct?
Yes, she did.
When you asked, so now what? She answered, I'm sorry, when you said, so now what? She answered, now what? Correct?
Well, I don't have it in front of me, so I can't agree with you. If I'd like to see what you're referring to.
Well, you just read it about 10 minutes ago. Would you quarrel if
I know, but you're giving me.
I'm going to skip ahead a little bit because he's going to continue to go through some of these texts. I also think that I've lost that comment. Never mind.
the real deal? She responded, it doesn't exist, didn't she?
She did, yes.
And she never once in any of those texts expressed anger or hatred for John, correct?
No, not at all.
But in fact, she indicated more frustration with the immediate family. The kids, she didn't want to have kids.
In its totality, I would say yes.
And then on January 23rd, as you just saw, she just stopped communicating with you altogether, correct?
Until the 29th, yes.
Correct. Do you know what the term ghosted means?
I think I have a general idea, yes.
She sort of ghosted you, didn't she?
I wouldn't agree with that.
I would say she ghosted you. Especially even on the 28th when you text her and she didn't text you back. What do you guys think? Did Karen Reed ghost him? You're texting back and forth. It's all hot and heavy and flirtatious. And then a week goes by with no texts from her and multiple texts from him. Now, is that enough to prove that he wanted to end John O'Keefe's life? No. It works both ways. I do not think that that's enough on its own.
Frustrating to you that she just stopped communicating, wasn't it?
No, not at all.
You've been moving through this mindset of exploring a romantic interest with a beautiful woman, thought was interested in you, just like that. It was done, right?
No.
So what communication did you have with her after January 23rd?
Well, she texted me on January 29th.
You keep saying that, but you know what I'm getting to. January 29th was her informing you that a tragedy had occurred. John had died, right? I'm not talking about that, Mr. Higgins, so I don't want to keep playing games.
All right. So that's what we talked about. No more of
Sorry.
that.
After the 23rd
He's getting frustrated. He also wants the jury to hear that. The judge is trying to shut that down.
or up to the 23rd, she'd been texting back and forth with you pretty regularly. You just saw it, correct?
She also sent me a text with arrows saying the phone works both ways.
And as of the 23rd, she stopped, didn't she?
The texts were sporadic over those 9 days. I don't know if they would have stopped or they would have kept going.
Well, they didn't keep going, did they?
Well, John passed away.
You know they didn't keep going because from the 23rd onto the 24th, 25th, 26th, 27th, 28th, all the way to the 29th, she never texted you, right?
I believe so.
She didn't respond to any of your texts, correct?
Well, she didn't respond to the text on the 28th Friday.
All right.
Yeah, I mean, I think that was a good point made by the defense. And Leah, it's crazy, especially like texts about your kids to friends or your spouse. It's like, you know, those complaints can come back. Oof. It's crazy. It's crazy to think of where the world is going with communication and how stuff can be used against you, especially by lawyers. After lunch, he comes back and says he did not discuss Karen Reed or the kids or the kissing or the flirting with Brian Albert on the drive home on the 28th. But then Jackson has his opportunity to talk about that well text that Higgins already admitted was flirtatious in nature.
Bothered you enough to send her a text, didn't it?
No, it was a flirtatious text. It was just, that was it.
It bothered you enough to send her a text and pay attention to you?
I did not feel ignored and didn't upset me at all.
It bothered you enough to send her a text, didn't it?
No, it was a flirtatious text. It was just, that was it.
It bothered you enough to send her a text that said, with 6 M's behind it.
Okay.
And, well, correct?
Well, it wasn't like that. It was, well, that's it.
Just, well, like a well in the ground.
I think you know what I mean.
Yeah, I think you do too, sir. You meant, well, were you gonna pay attention to me?
No, that's not correct.
Well, why are you ignoring me?
It's not correct.
Well, am I chopped liver?
Objection.
All right, that's sustained. Mr. Jackson, let's move on.
So Francis said, I'm very old. What does ghosting mean? Ghosting means you like become a ghost to that person, meaning you don't respond. You don't talk to them. They don't know what happened. You kind of disappear. You become transparent. They see right through you because you're not making yourself available to them. So you're ghosting them. Did not think I would be doing that on this, but Francis, thank you. That's always fun. So then he talks about exactly where his Jeep was, which is somewhere that there's no way that he didn't see Karen Reed's car, Nagel didn't see his car, other people were looking out the window and saw Karen Reed's car, but not Brian Higgins' car. That is a very weird thing to me, that if he left between 12:30 and 1 o'clock, and it wasn't when this accident and collision was happening, how does that all make sense? And frankly, he said that a couple times. I wonder if Jackson will go into, all this doesn't make sense, right? You said that. You said the next day I thought about it and none of it made sense, right? Because it doesn't make sense that this is how it would happen, right? Might be dangerous if he doesn't know the answer. Then there was a discussion about how he never went to the second floor, but then Brian Albert said we went upstairs to look at pictures, and to go upstairs to look at pictures, if you've never been to the second floor, would be coming up to the first floor from the basement because there are stairs there. It was kind of clunky. But if you already know about that, and I think the defense has done a good job of setting a foundation where we know about the basement. They're making the basement this like eerie place about where nobody wants to talk about what happens in the basement is kind of what they're making me feel about it. So I don't know if the jury's feeling the same way. So was he in the basement? Was he not? He said he had been there once. Brian Albert said he's never been there. So there's some inconsistencies there. Seems like maybe they're trying to say people are trying to hide stuff about what happens in the basement. And then I see you says, cover for tall guy with dark hair. Higgins gave it away at the grand jury. So let's hear what ICU is talking about.
You're under oath. Is that right?
Yes.
You knew that it was a crime to lie under oath
Yes.
in that proceeding? During the course of that proceeding, you were asked who was in the house and who you saw come into the house, correct?
Yes.
And during the course of that testimony, you admitted that you observed a tall, dark-haired male enter the Albert house that night, correct?
I believe that was in reference to ask it to somebody's brother in a pickup. I don't know if that was during.
All I'm asking you, Mr. Higgins, is did you say that? Did you say a tall, dark-haired male entered the house while you were there?
I said they might have.
Did you say they might have?
Yes.
That's crazy. We're just going to gloss over that. A tall, dark-haired male might have come in the house. And that's a weird description if you know John O'Keefe. What is that? That's crazy. I guess the Commonwealth is just say it's like one of the young kids' friends, whatever, something like that. It ain't Ryan Nagel because he didn't walk in the house. So there was some talk about maybe that was him. But this is wild. This is mind-blowing type stuff. And he only said it in the federal grand jury, which, Jackson is trying to push like, this is when you told the truth because you were actually scared of committing perjury. With all your buddies in the state police, you weren't as worried.
And that was in reference to somebody's brother.
Yes.
Tall and dark hair, right?
Yes.
You were asked, a male showed up where? And you answered, quote, showed up at the house. But I didn't know. I think he was there very briefly. I was half paying attention to it. Question, did that
Demurred, I would generally agree with you, except that I kind of do read his text like he wanted more than just one night with her. Like, why does he care what her long-term plans are with John if he just wants a night? I don't know. I mean, obviously, this would be my natural inclination to believe this as well, but those texts were different.
Mail come inside the house? Answer, I believe he did. Do you remember that?
All right, I don't want to break this part up.
House. That I didn't know. I think he was there a mail showed up where? And you answered, quote, showed up at the house. That I didn't know. I think he was there very briefly. I was half paying attention to it. Question, did that mail come inside the house? Answer, I believe he did. Do you remember that?
Yes.
So a mail did come in the house that night, correct?
No, I said I believe he did. I wasn't sure.
Well,
So a mail did come in the house. No, I said I believe he did. Why would you believe he did if he didn't come in the house? None of this makes sense from his perspective. And I thought this was the worst part of his testimony from his perspective.
when you testified at the prior hearing, you were asked, so you saw someone else come? Question. Answer, somebody else. Yes.
Fair, petty
Input.
honest.
That's what you testified to under oath, wasn't it?
Is that in reference to that?
What page are you on, Mr. Jackson?
He hands it to him to review.
Correct?
Yes, but I also said that I wasn't paying attention.
I realize that you want to explain your answer. I've asked you a very
Like, yeah, I said he was there, but I also said I wasn't paying attention. Don't forget. I said I wasn't paying attention. It's like, okay, dude, we get it, but you said that.
simple question. Was that your testimony in front of another proceeding?
Yes, it was.
At another proceeding, which you were under oath?
Yes, it was.
Okay. You also said that you only remember seeing that person come in briefly. And it looked like he was having a conversation with the two girls briefly, correct?
Yes.
You were asked how long was the person in there roughly, and you said it was quick. Less than a couple of minutes. I mean, it was quick, correct?
Yes.
It doesn't prove anything. It doesn't prove anything definitively, but it absolutely casts some shadows and doubts and shade on a lot of other testimony that did not testify to this. It gives some legitimacy to some of the stuff the defense is arguing, which the defense doesn't have to prove their case. So if there's just some reasonableness that what the defense is saying is true, then that's reasonable doubt. And it's got to be a not guilty verdict. So I do think this is pretty important.
And then you were asked what he looked like. And you said, I feel like they were a little bit taller. He had dark hair, correct?
Yes.
So you testified that a tall, dark-haired male came into the house, at least briefly, in your testimony, correct?
Yes.
Approximately when in the timeline of events did that unidentified male enter the residence?
I don't know the time frame. It would have been while I was there.
When you gave your statement to the Massachusetts State Police, you didn't tell them about a tall, dark-haired male coming into the residence at 34 Fairview, did you, on February 3rd?
I don't recall.
You were specifically asked by ADA Lally, when you testified before the state court grand jury on April 28th, 2022, who else was present, correct?
Yes.
And you never mentioned a tall, dark-haired male coming into the house, did you?
No.
However, on June 1st, 2023, at this other proceeding, you were specifically instructed at the start of your testimony that it was a crime to give materially false statements in that proceeding, correct?
Yes.
And that's the proceeding in which you admitted that there was a tall, dark-haired male who came in the house.
I
Yes
said
or no? Yes or no? Is that proceeding?
Can you answer that, yes or no?
No, I can't, Your Honor.
Next question, Mr. Jackson.
The quotes that I just read you and that you just looked at,
Yes.
that was from the June 1, 2023 hearing, wasn't it?
I don't know.
Mayor Pro Tem? Yes.
Yes.
How long did you stay at the Albert?
All right, I'm going to jump ahead a minute or two here to some other interesting testimony.
Driveway?
Yes.
There's nothing obstructing your view at that point of the lawn to your right, correct?
I didn't look over there, but I would not think so.
Between you and the flagpole, in other words, there wasn't some mound of dirt, something obstructing your view. You can see straight across if you wanted to, correct?
If I wanted to, yes.
It's just basically a flat grassy lawn with a light dusting of white powder snow on it, right?
I don't know how much.
So Rebecca, some people have said that. They have thrown that out there as a theory. I don't know if we have much proof of that yet, but again, maybe some experts are going to say something like that.
How much snow was, but there was snow there.
Yeah, you indicated that it wasn't even enough to stick to the pavement at that point.
Well, that's when I got there. Yes,
Well, you only stayed less than an hour, right?
that's correct.
So I'm assuming it didn't dump 3 feet in an hour, correct?
I think we can both agree that it's not free. It wouldn't have been 3 feet now.
Right, so it would have been a light dusting of snow.
More snow than there was there.
How far would you say it was from the edge of the driveway over to your Jeep?
From where the back of my Jeep was parked,
Correct.
maybe a foot or two, or it could have been even with the edge of the driveway.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. It's probably a bad question on my part. When you left the house, as you started to walk down the driveway toward your Jeep, how long of a walk is that? Across the yard, to down the driveway to get to your Jeep?
Short,
30 feet?
maybe.
Okay. During the course of you walking out the door, heading to your Jeep, you didn't see anything out of the ordinary in the yard, correct?
No,
You certainly didn't see a body in the yard.
of course not.
Now, you get in your car, and it's facing directly toward the flagpole, correct?
It's facing directly up the street. The flagpole would be off to the 1 o'clock.
Right. So just a few degrees off to the right, the flagpole is, correct?
It's off to the right.
Just a few degrees.
I don't know how many degrees, but it's off to the right.
Well, you just said one.
Where Karen Reed's car would have been around that time, right? Nina said, Peter, the guy with the dark hair in the house is Colin. Everyone said he wasn't there at all. I don't know. I don't know how tall Colin is, number one. Number two, why wouldn't he have just clarified? He may not have known Colin at the time, but he could have clarified later if that was the first time he was ever going to say Colin was in the house. And was Colin in the house? Because according to Colin, he bumped into his parents on the way out. I don't think he said he saw Higgins. It just doesn't all line up, right? And there's inconsistencies in the evidence. John said, so what are the separate murder charges? Murder with different degree, manslaughter, different degrees. It can be accidental homicide, different degrees. So yeah, it depends on the jurisdiction, John. I don't have time to break all of it down, but first degree intentional homicide, usually that's be intent, premeditation, a plan. You want to do it. Second degree can be depraved heart. Like you just walk in, you see your spouse cheating and you kill both of them. You want to, but there's not this long premeditation, but it's still a depraved heart, evil intent. Manslaughter is just an accidental killing. Generally there's felony murder where somebody dies when you're committing a felony. Even if that's not your intent, you can get first degree murder in some jurisdictions. On another video, maybe we'll dive into that a little bit deeper. Okay, next. He definitely didn't see a body. Jackson tries to impeach him about, he says, it was a long day. I just wanted to go home. Jackson's like, but you didn't go home, did you? You went to the station to do administrative tasks, which again, doesn't make a lot of sense after a long night when you just want to go home, have a few more drinks and eat and pass out on the couch. Jackson tries to impeach him with a different thing though. And I think he got it wrong because he said, well, you said you may have gone home or may have gone to the station. And he said, no, that was the next morning. And that's actually correct. I went back and listened to the testimony. Witness was right. Jackson was wrong. He said, you went to the office, you were talking to your buddy officer, good. You want to make sure he was on duty because you knew it was going to happen that night, making these accusations, things like that. And then we get into what happened that morning. How was he woken up and such?
Correct?
That is correct.
You don't use Snapchat and quote, don't do those things, correct?
That's correct.
All right. So you testified that the first call you received after returning home on the 29th was a call from Chief Berkowitz just before 7 a.m., which woke you up. Is that right?
It was around 6:30-ish, I think.
Okay. Your testimony previously was at some point before 7 a.m. That call was the one that woke you up.
Yes.
And it turns out, Mr. Higgins, that was a lie, wasn't it?
No, it wasn't a lie.
When you were asked that question at a previous hearing, you didn't know that the person questioning you had your phone records, did you?
I assume they did.
And you were thereafter confronted with those phone records, correct?
I was asked about them, yes.
And those phone records established that you and Brian Albert actually exchanged not one, but two phone calls at 2:22 a.m. that morning, at a time when you claimed you were in bed asleep, correct?
I have no recollection of any phone calls.
So Jackson's about to go in hard. Like, you lied. You said no phone calls, yet there is a 22-second phone call at, I think it's 2:22, or am I just mixing up twos? At 2:22 in the morning with Brian Albert. And he tries to go into how long 22 seconds is. The judge won't let him. So he does keep losing a lot on form. Either it's argumentative or compound or facts not in evidence or misstating the evidence, things like that. Brandy Higgins is ATF, federal agent, but alcohol, tobacco, firearms, not FBI.
Yes.
At least the top one. Those two documents marked exhibit, that's fine. There's an alpha
Lower right-hand corner.
in the right. It's okay, it's okay.
Same number.
Q.
I see it.
You've seen that document before, correct?
I think I've seen it maybe on a screen, not in my hand.
That was these were the records that were shown to you at a prior hearing?
Yes.
And you acknowledge that at least the one marked QQ is a record of your calls, correct?
It has my name, my telephone number, correct.
And it indicates that on January 29th, 2022, at 2:22 and 35 seconds, you received a call from Brian Albert, duration of 1 second, correct?
Yes.
In other words, Brian Albert called you at 2:22 and 35 seconds, but it looks like you missed the call, correct?
I see the 1 second call, yes.
So the Steffi K, I'm not so sure it's, over for them as far as career-wise. Obviously, publicly, it's going to be frustrating and annoying for them if they really did nothing wrong. But I don't know. I don't know.
There's a second call just below that on the same date at 2:22 and 52 seconds from you to Brian Albert. Do you see that one?
Yes,
And the duration of that call is 22 seconds, correct?
I see that. Yes.
So 17 seconds after you missed a call, according to these records from Brian Albert, you called him back, and there was a call lasting 22 seconds. Is that right?
That's what the records say.
May I approach?
Yes.
Night, approximately 3 hours before Mr. O'Keefe's body was found in his yard, correct?
No, that's not correct.
And that was 5 minutes before 2:27 a.m. when there was a Google search for how long to die in cold, correct?
Objection.
Sustained.
And that's just outside the scope of his knowledge, right? Theoretically, how does he know that McCabe did that Google search? You know, they're saying he has nothing to do with it. He's saying he has nothing to do with it, so he wouldn't know what she was Google searching and when she was Google searching. Clearly, the defense is trying to make the point that he calls Brian Albert, talks for 22 seconds, and then Jen McCabe ends up searching how long to die in the cold because they're all in this together trying to cover this up.
And then, of course, you lied about that under oath in that prior proceeding by saying, I don't remember this phone call.
Objection.
Sustained.
Did you, in fact, tell the truth at the prior proceeding when you said, I don't remember that phone call?
I always tell the truth.
Did you lie under oath, sir?
No, I did not.
Would you tell us if you did?
Objection, Your Honor.
Sustained.
You acknowledge that there's a 22-second phone call in your phone records, correct?
That's what's reflected by the record.
And 22 seconds is quite an amount of time. Would you agree? As
It's 22 seconds.
a matter of fact, it's about this long, with the court's permission.
The court does not give permission. That's argument, Mr. Jackson.
If we
With the court's permission, she's like, no, you don't have the court's permission actually to do that.
were to count off 22 seconds, that's an uncomfortably long time, is it not?
No,
It's long enough to have a conversation, isn't it?
I didn't have a conversation.
Is 22 seconds long enough to have a conversation?
No,
A human being can't have a conversation in 22 seconds?
sure they could. I don't think it's anything of substance.
Okay, so that's my question. Is 22 seconds long enough to have a conversation?
I don't agree with it. No.
Then he gets into the first person he spoke to was Brian Albert the next morning, even though Chief Berkowitz called him. He never told Chief Berkowitz about flirting or interest in Karen Reed, which I think is very interesting. It's the chief, the boyfriend of, I mean, this is literally a movie. The boyfriend of the person you're having an affair with of some sort. There was a kiss and, texting, ends up dead. She's charged with it and being investigated. And you don't mention that to anybody. At the very least, he should be a suspect too, right? Maybe he didn't do anything and maybe they can clear him. And I get that, but it's like the two main people that could be suspects if we think this was done on purpose would be the estranged girlfriend, if that's what she is, and the guy she's cheating with, right? I mean, to me, that seems plausible. That's the inner circle we've heard about in so many cases about how cases like this and investigations start. Then we get into how important phone data is. Nobody asked to look at his vehicle. Nobody downloaded his phone. 127, we talked about the Canton PD key card access. 127, he enters, confirms he wouldn't give the key to anybody else. He admits that, of course, he was talking to Brian Albert about John O'Keefe. Oh, this was interesting. So this was really interesting to me. So remember how everybody was acting like the defense was like, oh, they're being a little dramatic about how everybody there had to be questioned. And we know that Proctor went and questioned the Aruba girls before questioning everybody that was at Fairview. Well, listen to how Brian Albert, ATF agent, explains why he was talking to, sorry, I said Brian Albert, Brian Higgins, why he was talking to Brian Albert, why it was so obvious he'd be talking to him the next day.
Any conversations or conduct at Canton PD?
No.
Airport?
Yes.
But you were, in fact, on the phone with all of those interested parties throughout the day. You'll agree.
I was,
Answer that.
okay,
There's
yes,
no
Your Honor.
objection. You can-
Yes, they're friends and I was on the phone with them. Yes.
And sir, you were not on duty that day, correct?
No,
You are not a Canton police officer, correct?
that's correct.
You were not assigned to this investigation in any formal capacity, were you?
I was not.
As a matter of fact, you're a witness in a homicide investigation. That's your only role in this, correct?
That's correct, but they're still my friends.
And
Yes.
yet you're still having conversations with Kevin Albert at Canton PD while you're at Canton PD, correct?
Not about this.
And you're having conversations with Chief Berkowitz of Canton PD while you're at Canton PD, correct?
I had conversations with them, but not about this.
And
No.
you're consistently through the day calling Brian Albert, aren't you?
I had conversations with Brian Albert. John was found on his lawn. Yes, of course I had phone conversations with him.
John was found on his lawn. Of course, I had phone conversations with him. Well, that's not obvious enough for Brian Albert and Nicole Albert to go outside and see if they could do anything that their friend was found on their lawn. It's not enough to interview everybody that was at the house that night. It's not enough to interview everybody that was at the waterfall that night until years later or months later for some of them. But it was obvious to him. No, I can help you with that. It was not. Nobody asked to inspect his vehicle. He would have let them, of course. Transparency, open, wanted to cooperate. And again, I'm blaming this more on the investigation than any of these individual witnesses at this point. Chief Berkowitz told him personally that he found taillight pieces in the yard. It's 100% possible. I told Brian Albert that was the quote, which is wild. It's 100% possible that I told Brian Albert about Chief Berkowitz finding those pieces of taillight in the lawn. Random remixes. I like this comment. 22 seconds isn't long enough for a conversation, but you only needed 10 seconds on a conversation with your lawyer about answering questions about the data extraction. Wasn't that interesting? And you referenced something that we're going to listen to here, where they stop court to bring his lawyer in because Jackson wants to be sure everybody knows what we're about to go into, and this is going to be potentially incriminating stuff for Brian Higgins. So here comes his lawyer, his personal lawyer that's in court that day. This is outside the presence of the jury.
Counsel is not aware of a potential. Yes.
All
right. Yes.
The witness has indicated that he utilized federal resources for personal gain. The specifics of that testimony have been as follows. He indicated that he contacted Matt Kelch, a federal agent. He indicated that he utilized a federal facility. He called it an unsecure facility, but it's a federal facility notwithstanding. And that the two of them, he and Agent Kelch, utilized federal resources in the form of some kind of a machine, as the witness indicated, for his own personal gain, so that he could, as a witness, in no official capacity or in any official case, and in Matt Kelch's capacity as an individual rather than an agent, they both worked together to download certain information from the witness's phone in anticipation of turning that highly selected, highly curated information over to law enforcement so that he could later ultimately destroy his phone, which this witness in fact did.
Okay, so it's not entirely, I disagree with you. I don't think it's reached that level. His testimony was that he went to a kiosk on the first floor where all local police departments can go. It's unrestricted. It's on the first floor. And we just got to the part about a machine in the kiosk when you mentioned an FBI resource. So what is your question? What questions do you intend to ask this witness now?
Whether he's aware that under 5 CFR 2635.702 is a federal offense to use his public office, to use any public office for his own private gain or for the gain of persons or organizations with which you are associated personally. In other words, an FBI agent or an ATF agent cannot use federal resources for personal gain. The fact that he contacted an ATF agent, the fact that he utilized a facility that is owned by the federal government, run by the federal government, paid for by taxpayer dollars, and the fact that he used a machine that is owned by the federal government to download certain information for his own personal gain, that personal gain being, these are the curated texts that I'm going to turn over to law enforcement, that's a federal offense.
All right, so those questions are going to be asked. I don't know that there's been an objection to them. I'm not sure I'm going to let them in, but I wanted to give you the opportunity to speak privately with your client in the bathroom there. Can you do it in short order?
I can do it in about 10 seconds.
Okay.
There's the 10 seconds comment. I can deal with it in about 10 seconds. Shane, this got me. Brian, internet already dug up a Colin A fight video. Ashley said the same thing. I haven't seen it. If unknown male testimony was part of the federal proffer, the jury should know about that. He lied until he had to admit it. Videos out of Colin fighting too. Breezy said also, Peter, what exactly is this proffer we're hearing of? What are they and why might they be important in relation to this case? We don't know what he said. So it's hard to apply what he said in that proffer to what's going on here. People have guessed. I really don't want to guess because I don't think it helps. If I was 100% probable about what was said, then I would say it because, Ann, I consider 100% possible or probable just a yes. All right, let's jump. So when he tried to ask these questions in front of the jury, the judge basically sustained all the objections, but we did get some more talk about destruction of the cell phone. I expect more of this to come out on Tuesday, but let's listen to how the day ended with, again, if the other part that I said was the worst part of his testimony, I can't even remember what part that was right now. This was the second worst. The destruction of a cell phone sounds so bad. The timing and the coincidence, it's so bad because this was not a surprise to this guy. He knows how important cell phone data can be in investigations. He's a federal agent. And to do something like this is just crazy. And we'll hear how he explains it. Yes, please hit that like button. If you guys haven't already, hit the like button and subscribe. We're growing. We're growing.
Correct.
No, Your Honor, if I could explain.
Sure.
He walked me through on how I could pull the text string with John O'Keefe and the defendant. He walked me through the process, how to use the machine.
Yeah, just what you wanted to pull, not your whole phone, just what you wanted to pull.
And then you did that.
I did do that. That's
And that's
correct.
what you turned over to the police.
That's correct.
And any other information would still be on your phone ending in 5421, correct?
Well, that information stayed on my phone. I just took those strings off and provided them to the Mass State
Right,
Police.
so where's your phone?
I do not have that phone anymore.
You destroyed that phone, haven't you?
No, I threw the phone away.
Well, that's destroying the phone, isn't it?
I had every right to do that.
You destroyed the phone, right? No, no, no. I threw it away. That's destroying it. And then he doesn't argue with him anymore about destroying it. He said, I have every right to do that. What does that make you think? Honestly, even if you believe in the Commonwealth's case, you hope they prove it, you think they're going to prove it. What does that make you think of a witness that a federal agent would do that? Don't be like Chrissy. Don't forget. Just kidding, Chrissy. But honestly, what would you guys think? What would you think if a federal agent was like, I had every right to throw my phone away? Yes, more information could be on it than what I screenshotted and chose to share. But yes, I had every right to destroy my phone. Way too much. Like usually when defendants are like, this could be doctored, this could be edited, everybody's like, okay, here's the metadata. It clearly wasn't. We have the whole Cellbrite download. All of it lines up. It all makes complete sense. So you can keep sure, anything could be doctored at any time, but this is a lot more than that. A lot more than that.
I didn't ask you about your rights.
When I threw it away, if I was going to take it out, I would break it or cut it. But I did not wipe the phone. I did not take anything else off it. But if I was going to throw the phone away, that's what I would have done.
This was like a year or two ago. If I was going to throw the phone away, I would have broken the SIM card or cut it. Well, that's weird. Is that weird or is it just me? That seems weird. That's just like, yeah, that's my habit. That's what I would do. But I'm not saying I did that because I don't remember.
Okay.
You know, as an ATF agent with electronic data experience, when you pull the SIM card out and break it, and then throw the phone away and the SIM card away, you don't need to wipe the phone.
Objection.
Sustained.
It's true.
And that's it.
Your Honor,
One more question.
I can do this in 30 seconds. I think. You were aware that that there was a court order that you not alter, delete, or destroy, or in any way manipulate your phone or the electronic data associated with it, correct?
Objection.
As to what date?
As of September 30th, 2022.
Objection. I don't believe that's what the court order was. I think
Your Honor,
it's
to make a quick offer of proof, that's exactly what it was. It was notified. Were you aware of that? Was that your understanding?
What's the question exactly? I'm sorry.
That's the question. again.
Sure. Were you served with a copy of a notice on September 30th, 2022, that you not alter or destroy or manipulate anything on your phone on September 30th?
I was served an order. Yes, that's correct.
And isn't it true in another hearing, you explained that on September 29th, the day before you claimed you got that notice, you changed phone carriers and changed phone numbers
And I maintained the phone.
until you didn't, when you destroyed it a month later by pulling the SIM card out and throwing it away, correct?
objection.
Sustained.
Did you do
Feels like we've heard that before. Changed carriers, changed phones, but he maintained the phone for a whole month. Now, there's some other stuff going on. Like he's about to say, let's keep listening because this is gray area for me.
that in October? Did you destroy that phone?
Objection.
Sustained.
Did you pull the SIM card out of your phone, Mr. Higgins? Did you?
It's possible that I did. I believe that's how I've testified. Yes.
You testified.
It's possible that if I took it out, that it was either cut or broken.
It's not just
It's possible that I took it out. I believe I've testified to that.
So that
And that would have been after the date the order was already denied.
Mr. Higgins, I have one question.
That's the gray area to me. It was after the date the order was denied. So I don't know the answer as to whether or not he actually did have to maintain the phone or if he could have thrown it away if there was no longer a court order and they didn't allow the defense to subpoena it. So there's gray area there, right? And the jury's probably a little bit confused if they don't know how, discovery works and how the law works. And it probably sounds shadier than it might even be if this is what happened. So there is some gray area there to me about whether or not he actually did have to maintain it or if it was perfectly fine to destroy it. So I don't know. That's still up in the air for me, but I think it does sound bad in front of a jury. Iceman, I guess that makes sense. That's just how people in Boston do it. Why would he have a text string between KR and JO? Huh? That text string was between Brian Higgins and Karen Reed. Salacious, drunk, aggressive. Star as always. Peter, that is my whole point, that they never investigated anyone. So how are we supposed to know the truth? I agree. That feels like a problem. The investigation feels like the biggest problem, regardless of if I think this is a cover-up or happened in the basement or if it was Brian Higgins or some Albert. I don't know. But I don't feel like the investigation was good enough to prove this so far, that anyone did this to John O'Keefe, which really sucks for the O'Keefe family. Freedom says, seems extra and hurts credibility to call Karen the defendant. Just refer to former flame by name if truly impartial. Don't try so hard. So I think some trials were okay with this. Sometimes we're not. It does seem to be, something that they're doing intentionally in this case, especially to somebody that they were friends with for so long. And yes, P-Hop, so many oh crap moments with this guy and in court today. And he's not done. He's coming back on Tuesday for more cross. I think Tuesday. I know there might have been a scheduling issue, but I am sure the defense has more to deal with for this witness. But I personally think destroying it seems horrible and sounded horrible in front of the jury, especially with the dates they can make it look like, changing carriers, taking the SIM card out, cutting it or destroying it, because that's just what he does. Very wild. Very wild. But I got to run. This has already taken longer. I appreciate you guys joining me so much. Please hit that like button. Comment any questions that you have. I'll try to look at it later. Make sure you subscribe to our channel. Tell me the other stuff you want to see in here. I love you guys for coming here and hanging out with me for over an hour on these videos, for asking questions, giving your comments, adding so much to the content. It is always so interesting. I appreciate it. And that's all I've got. Until next time, I am out of here. Thanks for watching another episode of The Lawyer You Know. If you enjoyed the episode, please hit the thumbs up and share with your friends who may be interested here on YouTube. And don't forget to subscribe. You can also follow us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and TikTok. And don't forget to check out the Lawyer You Know podcast with new seasons dropping every quarter. If you have a case you want to talk to us about, if it's a personal injury case, wrongful death, catastrophic injury, car accident, or slip and fall case, please email us at lawyeryouknow@gmail.com. And of course, all these links I just mentioned are included in the description below on this episode and every episode. So until next time, this is Peter Tragos, the Lawyer You Know. So I did hear a bunch of people, or I saw in the chat saying, I forgot the best part, where I think he took one part of the phone and threw it in one dumpster and took the SIM card out and broke it and threw it in another dumpster. So yes, I did see that. And that's horrible. I mean, that's just, all of it is bad. But I really do have to go. Do have to go. So you guys are the best. Little encore there, a little surprise encore just for Azam and for Demurd. All right. Peace.